Hey there, y'all. Peter Barclay here, host of True North Sports Talk podcast. And we are back with another scintillating episode about this week in sports. We have possibly the four biggest stories in sports that we are going to take a look at. These are stories that have been dominant on social media, on all the sports talk shows, and if you've been living under a rock somewhere, we definitely want to get you caught up on everything that people are buzzing about. Now, these are some high-profile stories. We got the NFL kicking off their season this week with some international flair. We have an NBA scandal going on right now that could change everything in the NBA. There's going to be a lot of interest going forward about this. You got fantasy football guys who are in a bit of a panic mode due to either injuries or just different things going on. And there's just a lot of good stuff to cover. So, as it is, buckle up. Hope you guys are ready for the ride and that you enjoy today's episode. As usual, got the game going on there, so we'll give you a few updates as to how the Blue Jays are doing. It's already 3-0 Yankees after a 3-run homer by Ben Rice, so that's not exactly good. And so yeah, hopefully you have a nice beverage, whether it be cold or warm. Where I'm at right now, just the way the weather is today, warm is better than cold. But whatever you have, grab it, kick back, relax, and let's get caught up on the week in sports. Now, to start off our episode this week, we are going to start off with one of the major bombshells that landed in the sports world this week, and that is Kawhi Leonard. Now, up here north of the border, especially in southern Ontario, this one really hits close to the heart, and it's sort of like an I told you so moment for a spurned fan base that still feels it every time he comes to town. Now, he is at the front and center of an investigation that the NBA has launched. It's at least at the beginning of it, or the face value of it, is about $28 million that is allegedly being paid to Leonard in a way of circumventing the cap. Now, the NBA has launched an investigation into that. One of the outside, supposed to be, what's the word? Not on either side or the other, unbiased points of view, and they have retained the law firm that they used in the Donald Sterling incident. And there was one other incident, I don't remember off the top of my head, that they retained this law firm for. And so they will be looking into this scandal. So if you've been seeing that Kawhi scandal is trending, maybe you don't know what's going on. Maybe who knows? Maybe you're not a sports person. You've never heard of Kawhi Leonard. But buckle up, get ready for as much in-depth look as we can provide you here today. So the NBA has announced that they're investigating this $28 million endorsement contract between Kawhi Leonard and a California-based sustainability services company that is called Aspiration. Now, we may get to this later on, but in conjunction with this, Kawhi started an LLC, which is basically a corporation, KL2 Aspire, in order to receive the funding from this contract and as the business end of that. So why did this happen? Well, because they suspect this might have been the way for the LA Clippers to circumvent salary cap rules in order to lure him there away from a place such as Toronto, who could pay him the most money. And if that is true, that would be massive. But it gets worse. Leonard allegedly signed this deal for what's being called a no-show job with a fraudulent tree planting company, because this company has since gone out of business. And here's the biggest possible shoe in this deal, or here's the kicker. This company was funded with $50 million from Clippers owner Steve Ballmer himself. Now, Ballmer is claiming he was conned by this company whose co-founder has recently pled guilty to fraud. Now, for anyone who's got even the smallest shred of common sense, for me personally, I don't believe Steve Ballmer even for a nanosecond. There is no way, even as a multi-billionaire, that you give away $50 million without doing your due diligence. So, as I just mentioned, people online are asking similar questions. How do you accidentally funnel $50 million through this company to one of your own star players through a fake environmental company? How is that even possible? So, how is the internet reacting to this? Well, people are going a little bit crazy with this story because it touches on everything NBA fans have been complaining about for years. Salary cap manipulation, superstar treatment, whether the league actually enforces its own rules. The searches trending right now are Kawhi Leonard scandal explained, NBA salary cap, circumvention, Steve Ballmer fraud. And what this means is if the NBA finds the Clippers guilty of circumventing the salary cap, we could be looking at massive penalties. Talking about potential draft pick losses, fines that could reach millions, and possibly even forcing Leonard to forfeit this money. Could Leonard even face a ban from the NBA? This could set a precedent for how the league monitors these types of deals going forward. So in the bigger picture, this story is huge because it exposes what so many fans suspect, or what they suspect happens behind the scenes. Teams finding creative ways to pay their stars extra money. Leonard made his first public appearance since the allegations surfaced, but he wouldn't address the scandal directly. That's typical Kawhi Leonard. He doesn't say a whole lot, but what makes this even more interesting is the timing. Leonard has had injury issues, contract disputes, and now this. Clippers invested everything in this championship window, and this scandal very well could derail any championship aspirations that the Clippers have for the next decade, depending on how severe Adam Silver punishes the LA Clippers. Now, I just had a thought and a question for Adam Silver and the Clippers, but do they get their second new owner in the past decade due to scandal? This could be interesting for how it goes. The court of public opinion, which is obviously what we're doing here just a little bit, they've already started deliberating, meaning it's cooler conversation topic around many a company in this country. Now, one of the things that I read that really upset Larry Tannenbaum, who is the face of MLSE, being the owner of the Raptors, is he had endorsements lined up for Leonard in a legitimate fashion because they were actual sponsors with companies they have had sponsor them for years, and not just some random company that the owner put money into. These are legit companies, but they had $15 million in actual endorsements lined up, and they weren't putting any money into those companies. So this story's not going away anytime soon, and there's a lot to expand on and get into here. There's a lot of nitty-gritty. What are the legalities of this? Could Steve Ballmer or Kawhi Leonard even face criminal charges based on the fact that this company is already proven to be fraudulent? So the question is, how far is this going to go? Alright, so scandal aside, let's shift gears here. And some positive news from this week out of the world of sports. We had NFL Week 1 kicking off in Brazil this year with the Kansas City Chiefs. And it gave us everything that we love about football. Upsets, international drama, and immediate overreactions that have social media in a bit of a frenzy. The biggest story is, as we mentioned, the Los Angeles Chargers defeated the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs in Brazil. Not a great way for the Chiefs to start off the season, but let's pump the brakes here on Doomsday. It's one game. At the end of the season, depending on how the rest of it goes, it could be pivotal. Super Bowl hangover, quite possibly. The Brazil game was historic, as it was the NFL's first game in South America. As we know, they've had several in Europe. The atmosphere there looked incredible. Brazilian fans were into it. The league got exactly what they wanted from an international showcase. And it's not a stretch for soccer fans, or in Brazil be known as football, to make that jump and be fans of the NFL. Nobody expected the Chargers to come out and dominate the Chiefs like they did. Again, it's early in the season, so I would really caution and take a wait and see approach. Now, if you're a fantasy football guy, well, maybe that gave you an early hit on your fantasy football season. If you're betting and your bets all got blown up because of that, well, unfortunately, they call it gambling for a reason. So, Chiefs concerns, what are people talking about when it comes to what happened with the Chiefs? Patrick Mahomes, he just kind of looked off in this. What did that lead to? Well, the Chiefs' offense sputtered a little bit. Their O-line could probably do a better job of giving Mahomes space. Their defense just didn't have it this week. They couldn't find a way to stop the Chargers, especially when it mattered most in the red zone. And again, as I said, week 1. Let's pump the brakes on the panic. The internet doesn't know how to do that, unfortunately. And so a result of that is that's trending right now. Search terms for that are exploding. Things like Chiefs Super Bowl hangover, Mahomes is washed, which is crazy for anyone to say. He's still a really young guy. You gotta remember how much he's done in such a short period of time. Chargers Super Bowl contenders, I think that's a bit of an overreaction, but they are in full swing. And this is peak NFL fan behavior. As we mentioned, international success. The Brazil game was actually a massive success for the NFL's international expansion. Thankfully for the NFL, the crowd was electric. The production value was great, as they proved they can take this show almost anywhere. This opens the door for more South American games, hopefully. That's huge for the league's global growth. And so yeah, things are looking good for the NFL so far. Now, week 1, there's overreaction, so let's be real. This happens every year. One game and suddenly teams are either Super Bowl locks or complete disasters. I'd say we got to get to at least the halfway 2/3 point in the season before we go anointing anyone. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl just about 9 months ago, and people in some fan bases are already ready to write them off after one game in a different hemisphere. So, here's what's actually worth watching. So the question is, can the Chargers sustain this level of play? They have talent on that roster. They've had it there for years, but for whatever reason, they've struggled to put it together. If this Brazil performance is real and not just an anomaly, the AFC West just got really interesting. As I've been saying, the Chiefs will be fine. They always work their way out. But this loss in Brazil created storylines that will follow both teams all season long. So speaking of the week 1 chaos, well, here's your fantasy things that are concerning, shall we say. So we'll talk about injury concerns, and this is what had, as we said, fantasy football managers, NFL fans, and analysts all on their talking points leading up to the season opener. Christian McCaffrey, Micah Parsons, Justin Jefferson, some of the biggest names in football were questionable heading into week 1. The internet went into full panic mode as they were looking forward to seeing these guys, and their teams may suffer because of it. So the McCaffrey situation with Christian McCaffrey is the engine of the San Francisco 49ers offense and one of the most valuable fantasy football players in the world at the moment. So when injury reports started suggesting that he might miss some time, people in the fantasy football, the gambling stages, and all of that kind of stuff, they kind of freaked out a little bit, especially the fantasy guys, because they had drafted him first overall, and the 49ers fans in that fan base were left with a lot of question marks too. And so everyone was watching those injury reports every few minutes, just seeing, hey, is this real? Are we in real trouble here? Searches on the internet started picking up with things like McCaffrey injury update, 49ers without McCaffrey, fantasy football McCaffrey replacements, which way to turn, what direction to go in, who to replace him with. And so this shows just how much one player can dominate the conversation, even on teams with 60 or more players. What is the impact on fantasy football? Well, here's something people don't always realize. These injury concerns don't just affect NFL fans, they affect millions of fantasy football players, and some of them have real money, so they take their paychecks and invest it in these fantasy football leagues. And when a first round fantasy pick is questionable, it creates ripple effects across the entire fantasy football ecosystem, and people start fearing that they may not receive the returns that they would have expected by drafting these players. Justin Jefferson has similar concerns, and he's arguably the most valuable non-quarterback in fantasy football. The Vikings' entire offensive identity revolves around getting him the ball, and so if he's hurt, it affects everything, including those guys that took him for the yardage in their fantasy football. Now on the defensive side, Micah Parsons, he represents a new generation of defensive superstars who actually moved the needle for the casual fans. When defensive players become household names and fantasy football relevant, their injuries tend to matter beyond just the team performance. And we've all seen with guys like Lawrence Taylor that defensive players can really impact the outcome of the game. So the broader injury conversation, and what's interesting is how injury reporting has evolved. We now are getting minute by minute updates instead of day by day or week by week. Practice participation and speculation from every angle. It creates a constant state of anxiety for people who are heavily involved in these things. And so for fans and fantasy players alike, the NFL's injuries and injury management has become a bit of an art form. Teams are becoming more cautious, players are more vocal about their health, and the media coverage is more intense than ever. Week 1 outcomes, most of these players ended up playing, so that's a good thing, which is often how a lot of these situations get resolved. But the drama and speculation leading up to kickoff shows just how invested people are in individual player health and all those things. So the highlights for the NFL become a star-driven league when individual players can dominate news cycles just with an injury report. You know, the league has successfully built up the individual brands within these team sports. So now let's talk about the money side of things, specifically the Tennessee Titans making Amani Hooker one of the highest paid safeties in NFL history with a 3-year $48.6 million extension. This might seem like another contract story, but it also represents several bigger trends happening in the NFL right now. So, the breakdown of the deal, the $48.6 million over 3 years for a safety, is serious money. This puts Hooker in the top tier of safety contracts, which tells us that the Titans view him as a cornerstone of their defense moving forward. Some might hazard to say even a franchise tag type player. And here's what makes this interesting. Safety used to be one of the more affordable positions in the NFL. The fact that we're now seeing contracts of this size shows how the position has evolved and how teams place a bit more value on defensive playmaking a lot differently now. So how does this impact the market? So when one player gets paid, it basically sets the bar for everyone else at that position. Other elite safeties and now their agents are going to use Hooker's deal as a benchmark for their own negotiations. And across pro sports in general, we see this in every sport. And this is how salary inflation works across the league and across every league. The timing is significant, and getting this deal done before the season starts, it shows both sides wanted the certainty of the deal being done. For Hooker, he gets the financial security. For the Titans, they lock up a key player before his price potentially goes even higher. And so this also shows what direction the Titans are looking to go in. This extension tells us about the priorities of the Titans, and they're investing in defense and building around younger talent. Hooker's only 25. He's entering into his prime. So this deal covers his best years. It also shows they're willing to spend money to keep their core together after years of roster turnover. The Titans are trying to establish some stability within their roster, which is definitely a change over recent years. And so how does the safety market, or how has it evolved? This position has become a lot more versatile and valuable. Modern safeties need to cover receivers, support run defense. They rush the passer at times on blitzing and other type defenses. Players who can do all of these things effectively have now become worth paying for. Hooker's skill set fits perfectly with today's NFL defenses. He can match up with the tight ends, provide coverage if he needs to. He makes plays near the line of scrimmage. And so he is exactly what the Titans need. So how are the fans reacting to this? They seem to be a bit split over this deal. Some love that they're investing in young talent, keeping good players around. Others question whether it's too much to be spending on a defensive player like this. And they also have needs at other positions that they think, maybe some of that money could be better spent. So some are positive, some are not. Analysts praise the Titans for identifying and paying for talent before it becomes either more expensive or before it just leaves in free agency. So this deal will be judged on Hooker's performance over the next 3 years, but it signals that the Titans are serious about building a competitive defense. Now, in sports, we all know defense wins championships. That's the age-old saying. And so it would behoove the Titans, along with every other team, that, hey, you know what? This is your defense. You have a young talent who could be somewhat, I wouldn't go as far as to say generational, but he's that tier down. And so I would say is that they really need to lock up a guy of this caliber. And yeah, it looks good on the Titans to a certain degree. Again, it all depends. Being healthy, providing the statistics and the things that the team needs going forward. And so yeah, what do all these stories tell us about the current state of sports? Well, the money factor is that 3 of our 4 stories involve a massive amount of money. Things like Leonard's $28 million scandal, and this could grow bigger before that one's over. McCaffrey's fantasy football value, Hooker's extension. Sports has never been more about the financial side, and fans are more aware of contracts, salary caps, and money than ever before, simply because they have to be with these fantasy football things. With social media, that amplifies everything. It gives you access to information that was never there before, so every one of these stories was amplified or made bigger by social media. The Leonard scandal broke on Twitter. McCaffrey's injury concerns were driven by the fantasy football communities. The Chiefs being upset was and caused immediate hot takes throughout social media. They're flooding every platform. International growth, as the Brazil game shows, the NFL's commitment to global expansion. Don't be surprised if we see a lot more international games in new markets, and the league is thinking bigger than just American audiences. Well, they've pretty saturated the American audience, so where do you go from there? That is the question. We've talked about individual star power, whether it's Kawhi Leonard's scandal, McCaffrey's injury concerns, Hooker's extension as a star player, and individual players are now driving more narrative than ever in the NFL. The NFL especially has become and is becoming a star-driven league where individual stories matter almost as much as team success. So, what's next in all of this? Well, the Leonard investigation could take months to be concluded. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of different things to sift through. It could set precedents for how the NBA monitors cap circumvention. So that's the thing, is that this could take a long time to come to the end of its course. And then the punishment, that also will set precedents for other teams and hopefully dissuade them from trying to bend the rules. The Chiefs will have all season long. They got, 17 more games to prove that the Brazil game was just a hoopla event with a lot of just crazy stuff going on and was an anomaly. And McCaffrey and other star players will continue to deal with their injury concerns as the season wears on. Everyone's got their bumps and bruises, their aches and pains. And we'll see how Hooker's deal influences the safety market for years to come, and whether his performance adds up to what they're looking for. So guys, that is your look at the biggest stories from this week in sports. Hope you've enjoyed the information that we've been able to provide for you. Hopefully we shed some light on some things from, as we said, the scandals in the NBA going on with Kawhi Leonard, the NFL upsets with the Chiefs and Chargers, international games which lead to more money for mega contracts. It's been a wild week in sports because there's been a lot of other stuff going on. Our daily 3-minute drill covers a lot of those. And these stories show us that modern sports are about more than just the game. It's about a lot of money being involved, social media fan interaction, which is higher than it's ever been, international growth, and individual star power. They all collide to create the narratives that we've been following. So, that being said, keep following True North Sports Talk for all the analysis you need, whether it's the 3-minute drill, next week's podcast. We're always tracking the developments as they unfold. And so, until next time, keep watching the games that matter to you. We got an afternoon full of NFL sports. As I said, Jays are on right beside me here. And they were at 3-2 last time I saw the scoreboard. Actually, it's 3-3 now. Runners on second and third with 2 out in the third inning. So, yeah, it's that time of day. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Hope you had a good cup with you. And as always, we will see you next time.